Simen Shin Yutches, Seif Tes. Right? Until now we learned preparation for cooking. And then we started to learn, in Siv Zayin, we started to learn Mevashel. And when there's a Tulda, when there's a Av, and even the Tulda is even a Tulda's Chamo, also you're not allowed. Now we're going to speak about actual Bishul. We started already in Reish Nun Gimel, Reish Nun Zayin. We learned the Reish Nun Tes. We learned about putting back, not putting back, but now cooking. What is, you took something and you cooked it. Something is mechayev, right? If you take something and you cooked it already once, can you cook it again? Why not? In a way. So, Pashat, case in point, you take a soup and you put it in on Shabbos and Friday night. You guest didn't show up. You put back the soup in the refrigerator. And Shabbos morning, Geschmack soup, you want to warm it up again for the chonk. You want to warm it up again. Can you put it on again on the fire or not? I cooked already once. Can I cook it again? Sogt der Alte Rebbe, Halacha Seif Tes. Kol dovo lach yesh boi bishul achar bishul. Anything that's lach means moist, wettish. Really what is lach is anything that's wet on my hand, or an item, and I make it wet, and you touch it, and you become wet, and you touch someone else, and you feel wet, that's called lach. Lach could be pure soup, could be lach, could be anything that has that wet. It makes wet. That's the sprach, the Talmudical language. Meaning is that you get wet one time. It's wet over here. You have water on the item, on a piece of chicken. You have wet, very wet, and then you touch it, and you become wet, and you can make wet someone else. If you can't make it wet someone else, it's heißt nicht kein lach. Then it's mamish gosh. Kol dover lach yesh boy bishul acha bishul. You can, if you cook it once, you can cook it again. You have an avera to cook it again. As they get out the Rebbe in the beginning, and explains it. Tav shilach, a food that has moisture, has wettish. Shenizbashil kvar kol tzorkei. It was completely cooked, ready to eat. Not a half away. No, Michael Drusoi. No. A good gekocht. It was cooked completely. When it's standing and it became cold, is then you have bishul acha bishul. And he explains himself. Vafilu lo in standing legamri. Even if it didn't become completely cold, but it became cold enough that it's not hot. It was boiling, and it became cold. How cold did it become? Cold enough that it's not elosh ein hayad seledes boy. It's cold enough that your hand does not get burnt. Yad seledes means getting burnt. Yad seledes boy means a temperature that when you give it the turn, when you touch it, it gets burnt. Now, how much is it? So the contemporary points can say, when it does. So it's a measurement. And a measurement means like this. There is a kula and a chumra. If you want to know, you could call yad seledes boy when it's, sometimes you use it lekula, sometimes lechumra. I'm going to get to it in a minute. But the bottom line is, so you have a span. Span is approximately 100, I'm talking about Fahrenheit, right? You're going to tell me in Celsius. Fahrenheit. 100, 105, 110 degrees. That could be Yad Seledes boy. And really, if you're going to go up to 160, 155, 160 is called Yatzel. That's the window between 110 and 160.
160,
yeah.
You burn your hand.
You could burn your hand.
160 is already pasteurization. But Moshe Feinstein Paskin that you could pasture keli at 160.
That's why.
That's
why I'm going to get. I'm going to get in a second.
20 got the letters boy. That's not boy. They need it so a baby can touch it.
I'm going to get in a second explaining when you say 105, 110, and when you say 160. But I'm going to get it down. I don't want to speak about it before. Why would you get this? But the bottom line is now, if it become cold, could be that in this case we're talking if it's less than 170, not 110. Because we're talking about Bishul and Shabbos, could be that now we're discussing that it did not go, that it became 100 degrees or 90 degrees and it's warm. He's talking about 130 degrees, but still not 170. Punkt. This is the case when you have the window. If it became cold, not completely cold, but colder than 170, 160, not 110. And he warmed it up, and he warmed it up back to, not cooking, but he made it should be burning to, let's say, 160 degrees, or let's go better. If he went down to 90, still warm, still kind of hot, 100, it's hot, and then he cooked it to 110. I don't say till 170 because I don't want to be machmir. I go, even if you get only 110, chayev mishum mevashel. This opinion holds, and this is the mechaber. This is we're going to call it shittas mechaber. That's going to be easier for us to understanding. Bes Yosef. Let's take this.
He doesn't hold.
He told Bishul acha Bishul belach. Brings it clear mechaber. Chayev mishum mevashel. Chayev mishum mevashel. By lach. But Bishul. But if it's very hot, so hot that Yatzeledes boy, and when I'm saying here, Yatzeledes boy does not mean 110. Now I'm going to go to the extreme. I'm going to say 160, 170. And he takes it now after.
Which brings it to a boil.
And he boils it up again. In other words, he had the soup. I'm telling you, the soup is the most lach that you can have, right? Or anything that's very, very lach, right? Moisture. And it became, I took it off the fire and it became cold. But not really cold. It wasn't boiling anymore. It went off. So let's say it went up to 150 degrees. Or it was 170 degrees. And then he went and he cooked it again and it became to boiling point. It's not chayev from Bishul, even though it's lach. And you just told me before, if it goes a little bit, if it becomes colder, let's say it goes 100 degrees, you chayev mishum mevashel. He said, no, here's no problem. Ein b'zeh mishum Bishul, umutar afilo lechatchila, and you're allowed to do it. Not it's ein b'zeh mishum Bishul, but the eved. Lechatchila, you can take and warm up a dov or lach. If it's hot, you can warm it up.
Put it straight on the fire.
L'artichol somuch le'esh. You're allowed to boil it somuch le'esh, near the fire. Why near the fire? He's explaining you why. B'mokim she'en lochesh lechitui. In a case that you're not going to be choishish the gzeira that the Chachomim made, that it should be mechata. In other words, k'moishi is boiled. K'moishi is boiled. It says later he's going to tell you that you're not allowed to put on a fire only because of what? Even something that is no cooking. You're not allowed to put on a fire the same way as you're not allowed to do hachzorah. Hachzorah, it just came down from the fire and it's a boiling thing, you can't put it back. So obviously here when it became cold, for sure you can't put it on the fire, right? But there's two things. He tells you one of the things is shein lochosh lechitui. If you put it near the fire, you have no problem of being mechata. Mechata meaning that you're going to touch the fire and you're going to make it bigger. You're going to store it, whatever. But you basically, I'm afraid, the gzeira, the rabbonon, that I'm afraid you're going to be a yisur deraisa. there's one more. There's another Indian which by Achzora, the Alter Rebbe brings down Reish Nun Gimel, which it also applies over here. Nire kemevashu. It looks like he's cooking. Someone sees you taking a pot, cold thing, you put it on the fire. Even later he's going to tell you that is something dry. No cooking. There is no avail of cooking. Nire kemevashu. But here he is using the word shein lochos lechitui. What is the difference? There's a difference between the two reasons. But anyway, it brings this there. Menachem shein lochos lechitui.
With a blech. We're talking about without a blech.
We're talking about without a blech.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to get to it. I want to finish first the sieve over here, and then I'll get to this the few nuances, few details. This is exactly what he's talking now. Are you allowed to put it on a tanu or a kiro when you don't have the direct fire next to it? Yeah, and really, it's going to be. You're going to think today. Are you allowed to put on a hot plate? You said like a blech. I'm saying put it in a hot plate. Are you allowed to put on a hot plate? Are you allowed to put it on a hot plate? So Nizboy b'simen Reish Nun Gimel, and really you cannot do it. The Yesh Omrim, this is until now we said one din that holds that Yesh Bishul Acha Bishul. We called it the Shittas HaMechaber. Let's call it like that. The Ramo brings down Yesh Omrim Lehokel, and who is that? This is the Yesh Omrim. V'yesh Omrim, this is what the Alter Rebbe brings down. V'yesh Omrim, this is the Shittas. We're going to call it the Shittas HaRashbo and the Ran. The Rashbo and the Ran writes word by word from the Rashbo. This is Shittas HaRashbo. Shittas HaRashbo is V'yesh Omrim. He says there is no such a thing of cooking nochamo. What's the idea of cooking? You took an item and it wasn't edible, and you made it edible. You changed from raw to cooking. Aber after it's cooked, nicht tolle Sache. Der Rashbo sagt, it's nicht tolle Sache. You're playing me games. Oh, if it stays hot. It's not a question of warm or hot. We're talking about cooking. Cooking. It's gekocht schon. How many times are you going to cook it? Cooked it once. Cooking is once. Nicht keep cooking again.
You're warming it up.
But that's not cooking.
Warming it up is not cooking. Who says you're not allowed to warm?
We're still worried about stirring the cold.
That's something else. He's going to tell me, V'yesh Omrim. She'afilu nitztanen legamre. Even if it's made cold completely.
Right out of the fridge.
Ein bishul achar bishul. Memela, the Rashbo holds, Rashbo and Sayatoy and his following, Ran, etc. And the Ramo brings up. Umutar l'artichoi b'Shabbos somuch leish. B'mokim shein lochos lechitui. If there is no bishul acha bishul, even when it's cold, the same thing that we said before, that if it's hot and there's there in bishul acha bishul, you should put it next to the fire. So they hold, the Rashbo and Siato holds, she'afilu nitztanen legam, even if it became cold, ein bishul acha bishul, memela, umutar l'artichoi b'Shabbos, you're allowed to warm it up and boil it b'Shabbos, somuch leish, near the fire, b'mokem she'ein lochos lechitui, in a place when there is no problem of the gzeira of the Chachomim said lechitui. The Alter Rebbe lahalocha. What is lahalocha?
If Shabbos not,
The Alter Rebbe paskins lahalocha like this. V'nohagu. The minig of the halacha is lehokel im lo nitztanen legamro. He takes the middle raw, and he says like this. What did the first opinion say? The Shittas HaMechaber. What did they say? This is the tool, Mechaber says like this. If it's warm enough, Yatzeledus boy is no problem, right? But if it became colder, is a problem. What did the other one say, the Rashba say? That even if it became cold completely, is no problem. So he passes like this. And this is the Ramo actually. The Ramo said, if it didn't become completely cold, if it stayed warm, warm, it stayed warm, then ein bishlach bishul. There's no problem. How much warm does it have to stay? How much you know that you can eat it from the warm. He is able to eat it because it's warm. In other words, it didn't become completely cold. But if it became completely cold, which the Rashba said, Ein bishlach bishul, when the Mechaber and everyone else said, Yesh bishlach bishul, and they said Chayev, Im nitzam legamre, no agin kisvor rishoino, me paskin like the first that you're not allowed. Afilu le'inyan di'evet. Even with di'evet, if it became cold, and with di'evet you put it up,
Shouldn't touch it.
you can't have it
On Shabbos.
on Shabbos Commission. Is more simulation Gimel. In simulation Gimel, we learned that if with di'evet he put back on fire on Shabbos, then he can have it. You can have it on Shabbos, and actually you can't have it even Mitzvah Shabbos with the Shiasu. There's a shtickle stealer here, but not everything in Reish Gimel doesn't bring down this thing. But anyway, we won't get into these details. Now, more than that, you're not allowed even to put it on the Tanur Beisachoyev. Tanur Beisachoyev, we discussed it already. It's an oven. It's not like over here. You have an oven. Yeah, you put it. No, this steam doesn't work like that. You have an oven. You have a steam, and the steam doesn't work. And the goy comes in the days and they are very cold, and they put up the steam. So what are you doing? You're going to take this pot or this cholent or whatever, and you're going to put it on top of the steam, and then when it go, and it became cold, but it cooked already. So you're not having it cooking again, right? It became cold, and then you wait, and the guy puts it on, and it became semachaydiki warm. So he says no. If it became cold completely, even to put it on the tanur, on the oven of winter, before the guy comes in every day, and he puts on the fire, puts on the steam, and you're going to put it there, because that you want it should be warming up the food when he comes. Also, Commissioner Boyer Shom, like he explained over there in Reish Nun Gimel, right? And the same thing applies to every item that we're going to learn in this Siman Shin Yud Ches Sheyesh Bo Mishum Bishul. Everything that I say to you about Bishul, you're not allowed even to do Bedi Evet. You're not allowed even to do it putting it on the oven. Before we get right there, I just want to touch a few things. Like you touched about the hot plate. I want to go back to one thing like this. When he tells you now, cold over lachshin is bashul kvar cold. So when it's standing, she'ein hayat seled is boy v'chim actually chayv mishum mevashul. Chayv mishum mevashul. Is he talking about minatoyra or midrabanan?
If you already have a cooler that permits cold, so it
No.
Why should you punish the person by telling him you're not leaving enough from it after Shabbos? I can understand that you carrying out your chumrah and saying that you heat it up during Shabbos. So during Shabbos you can't have it.
Okay,
but there's a cooler already that says that it's okay to do it cold. So why don't you let him warm it? Let him after Shabbos.
My shayla is starker than that. Does the Alter Rebbe hold that cooking, when it became cold, he said, if it not became cold, does he hold then when it becomes colder than Yad Seledis boy, the first opinion, and you warm it up in your chayiv, are you chayiv min ha-Torah or min ha-Rabbanan? What do you think? When he says chayiv mishum mevashul, looks like min ha-Torah. I mean, there's arguments about it. There's much more little from the Chaim Noah that he says that Alter Rebbe does not hold this with midaraisa or midrabanan. But we have a lot of proofs clearly that the Alter Rebbe, when he says chayiv, he means chayiv min ha-Torah. That means like this: shitas ha-mechaber, as we call it, right? Lach belach. If it became colder than Yad Seledis boy, is chayev min ha-Torah to warm it up again. Chayev mishum mevashul. Then, in other words, if you take hot, warm lach. Even an item, a lach could be
Even a kugel.
a kugel is dry, but and kugel we're going to get into it is another issue. It's baked. If it's baked, if it's cooked. So you're talking about a wet kugel, a real wet kugel. Yeah, a wet kugel. Kugel is dry. Is not a lach. But anyway, something to say about chicken that's very soaky. Yeah, very schnitzel, very moist, very moist. And according to this opinion, it becomes not cold, just became a Bishul, not Yatzeledes, went down from Yatzeledes at 80 degrees, right? You're chayav mishum mevashel. Calling it minatorah. As a mashman.
Yeah, but by saying that,
Yeah.
you're totally undermining the Rashba and the Ran.
Exactly.
Totally
No,
undermining.
I'm talking about their opinion. According about that opinion. So I'm going to
No,
tell
but
you
once
why.
you-
Because the
once
Prime
you-
Godim, this is the Remo.
Once you told me that anything less than Yatzeled is but it's mashma without Rebbe, even though Reb Chaim Noah says that perhaps not, it's the Rabbanon,
Yeah.
but it's mashma that he's saying Doidaisa. By saying Doidaisa, you're totally undermining the whole kula.
Okay. So you know what? First of all, let's just learn one item, one particular item. In this particular item that the Ramo brings down in Shulchan Aruch, I don't do Shulchan Aruch over here. The Ramo says that when they say Chayiv Mishum Mevashel, when it's not Yatzeredes boy, they say only Mitztamik V'Yofeloi. If it becomes better. But if it's not Mitztamik V'Yofeloi, it's not Chayiv Mishum Mevashel. However, the Alter Rebbe doesn't make the difference. The Alter Rebbe says clearly, Chayiv, it doesn't bring a difference. In the Alter Rebbe, there's no difference, right? So you should
It's the
know.
act of Bishul.
The act, exactly.
It's not what happens to the food, it's the act of cooking.
Yeah, okay. Item that I want to touch because it's important things. According to this opinion, you're saying you Chayiv Mishum Mevashel. Does it make a difference if it's in Klirish or in Klisheni? And I'm saying Klirish and Klisheni, we didn't touch yet the Klirish and Klisheni aspect, but we all know that Klirish is Mevashel, Klisheni is not Mevashel. Now, or is it under fire, even if it's very far from the fire? Is it, or, so according to that, Imashma really that it's Mevashel. Why do I bring all this? To explain one item which is very not understandable. So the Rebbe Paskins said this. This is what you mentioned. That's why I wanted to get to it. He Paskins that if it became less than what the Mechaber likes, you have no problem. You could warm it up. He said no problem. If it stayed warm, mitzat chamimusoi, you could warm it up. Go according to the idea of the Rashba. Right? He has no problem. If it's less, by the way, when he says it stays warm, it doesn't mean that you're gonna become completely cold. Then you're gonna put it next to a place not near fire. You're gonna put it next to an oven where you're allowed. Later we're gonna learn certain areas. You're gonna warm it up a little bit. Then you're gonna warm it up a little bit more. And a woman, oh, you know what? Now it's edible. Now I can put it by the fire. No. It talks about that. You follow what I'm saying? It's interesting. You understand what it's only if it didn't go down completely. But if it went down completely, you're not allowed. But what did he say? I want to explain myself very well. The Mechaber holds, and this is the Loshen Rishon, and he says the Iker da Alocha like that if you took Dovo Lach and it became cold and went down more than Yatzeredes boy, Chayiv Mishum Mevashel, you're not allowed. Okay. But Alter Rebbe says, no, don't worry. A minhag lahokil. What's the minhag? Don't go by that. Go like the Rashba and the Ran. Don't go completely like the Rashba and the Ran, completely cold. But if it stayed a little bit cold, a little bit warm, no problem. Use their logic. use their logic that they say that they call it. No, they say it no Bishul Bishul. But the other guy say Chayv mit der Torah. No problem. I don't care. I go with the Rashba. I have a sticker problem with that. You know what I don't understand? But what did Alter Rebbe say? But if it went mitztanen legamre, if it went completely cold, then he says, "Osir afilu b'di'eved." That's what you asked before.
Yeah.
You asked afilu b'di'eved, but I'm going to explain you Shaila even starker. Her. In Hilchos Gimel, and I quoted already many times because it's negei lepoila alocha lemaisa. Now alocha lemaisa, I'm going to give you an example. Alocha lemaisa is what he just mentioned now. On a hot plate. We're going to learn about it later, and we're going to see it in the Alter Rebbe. Voran posting that halten that this is not called putting on the fire. This is called putting it near a fire. Poskim asfardim. Whatever, yeah. They hold a hot plate.
So you can put it on
A hot plate is not a fire. Since when is a hot plate a fire? You don't cook on it. It's not Mexican mevashul. Everyone knows it's a hot plate. It's Mexican. You cook on a hot plate? No. Yechata? Yechata. That's what they hold. We're going to learn. Maybe we're going to understand from the Alter Rebbe differently. Maybe.
The hot plate is not a blech.
No.
Hot plate is an electric element.
So I said maybe.
That stays at what temperature? 120?
So okay, but it's kechiluk. We don't cook on it. You do not cook on it.
It warms up.
Keep warms up. Okay.
But you let it put on top of a pot. It's like a pot.
That's versteht. Okay, anyway. So even though you're going to pass that you're not allowed, but if someone did it and he went according to the person that told him it's okay. Better case, the case and point. Actually, Alter Rebbe brings it down. We learned that, but I'm going to go back. There's a loch in Siman Shin Chof Gimel. Talks about toivu kelim on Shabbos. You're not allowed to be toivu kelim on Shabbos. So, right? You're not allowed to toivu kelim. Shabbos going misakin a keli. Now the shaila is tvilas kelim midaraisa or tvilas kelim is midarabon. So if tvilas kelim is midaraisa, then okay, you will learn Shin Chof Gimel. We'll see. Anyway, so then the Alter Rebbe brings down the halacha. Shin Chof Gimel Sif Ches. He writes Sif Tes, it's a mistake. Sif Ches. Shin Chof Gimel, famous, everyone knows. Shin Chof Gimel Sif Ches, the Alter Rebbe brings down la halacha. If someone, then he brings an opinion that says mutter. Mutter, you're allowed to do it. Find it with only mutter because all the dead tefillah is only with the rabbanim, and you could do it on Shabbos. You can do it on Shabbos. Well, Yom Tov for sure, but I'm talking about Shabbos. You're allowed to be toivel if you have no choice. Well, the Rebbe says la halacha. No, you should not. What should you do if you have a keli in your stock? You have a keli, you don't have it, and you need to use it, and it's not toivel. So you should give it to a goy, even though you're not allowed to makna, but this you're allowed to do. You have to give it to a goy via matona, and after that, after Shabbos, you get it back, and then you make a tefillah without a bracha. And the Faran tells a hold that you're allowed to make a tefillah on Shabbos, but he says halacha is not mitornished. But the avid, if someone did, are you allowed to use it? So I would say no. Halacha is mitornished. So now the Rebbe brings la halacha at the end of the sif, and this is mentioned already in many cases. I'm bringing here a case in point, and we bring it. La halacha, he says, being that there are rishonim that hold that you're allowed, so you can't be aser on b'di'evet.
You can't be what?
You can't be aser. You can't say it's also. You can't prohibit it on b'di'evet because no poskim is only made. So la halacha, whenever there is a machloikes haposkim, even though you paskin la halacha like one, but if b'di'evet, you always go and be makel. Why over here?
We don't.
Not only that the Rashba is stam, that he's stam in opinion, and the halacha is not. He uses the Rashba. He uses them quite a lot. He goes with them. If it became cold, if it's still warm a little bit, You can warm it up. That means that the Rashba's opinion is not stam. Halacha is completely not half, semi. Right? So why, when it became cold completely, is Doctor Nitztal Legamre, Doctor also or B'di'evet? Not only B'di'evet, even if you give it to a goy that did it, you should not even let the goy put it on. Huh?
Yeah, to warm it up on the radiator.
Okay, anyway, if I think it's
So what's that? It's a white talk.
So
I won't be able to sleep.
So I'm going to finish off like this. We discussed it many times. I'm going to repeat it again. According to the Alter Rebbe, this is only a machloikes when this is the Rabbonon dike Isur. The Isur Agbolas Kelim given with the Rabbonon. Why do I emphasize that? Because the Mishnah Board doesn't think like that, and we're going to bring the Sophic about it. So we understand from that. From here we see clearly that if I say Mevashel is midaraisa, that's why I went to ganz Hilchos. If Mevashel is midaraisa, so you're going to have here. It's taka machloikes, aber es nicht ka machloikes, aber ist der Rabbonon. Sie kennen seine machloikes. So therefore, those who say that the first opinion that holds Bishul by Lach, by Nitztanen, is only with the Rabbonon, then it would not make sense to be the Eved. Muss man sagen, do you understand what I'm saying? I think I self-explanatory, right?
Yes.
As the first opinion holds, as is Mevashel, if Nitztanen legamre, the Alter Rebbe holds, it's Mevashel with the Reife. Only problem I have is, why when it's Mechamim, it's still warm, huh? Yeah, okay. Anyway, we will continue with Hashem next week.
To be repeated.
Okay, I don't know. Okay. Seid gesund.
Shkoyach.